me in the last days. Yeah, yeah. For what is the flesh? Without the spirit, there's no best. Yeah, yeah. We live in the West, where the sins equal death. See, my earthly body doesn't mean nothing. I'll die for it if it means something. In this world, it's just long suffering. He sent his son because he loved me. I'm serious. People out.
Hey, what's good, fam? So I got another Lost in Translation video here, and I wanted to get into Joshua. This might be a deep dive, I'm not sure yet, but there is a correlation between Joshua, the conqueror, okay, that was the protege of Moses, and he was the one that led the Hebrews into their land. Okay, so if you remember, Moshe actually died. He was able to see the land, but he was not able to go in. And then Joshua was the one that entered the land and conquered it for the Israelites. Okay, so anyway, there is definitely a parallel between Joshua, who I'm going to call Yahusha, the conqueror, and Yahusha HaMashiach. Okay, so that will make more sense after we get into this. Okay, so I'm just going to read from Hebrews 4 up to verse 8, and then I'll switch over. I'm going to read it from the NIV, and then I'll switch over to the NKJV, and we'll take a look at this word here. Okay, but I'm reading it all from verse 1 to get the context of what he's saying here. So I'm using the NIV because it's easier to understand. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. For we also have had the good news proclaimed to us, just as they did. But the message they heard was of no value to them, because they did not share the faith of those who obeyed. Now we who have believed enter that rest, just as Yahuwah has said. So I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. Okay, so this is heavy because there is a duality here. We literally saw this, where that generation coming out of ancient Mitzrayim, coming out of ancient Egypt, died in the wilderness, right? Because they did not show faith. Okay, remember the spies went into the land of the Hebrews. They saw the giants, and their hearts melted in fear. They panicked, almost started a mutiny against Moshe. It was ugly. So because of that, this is what happened. Okay, and they died in the wilderness. They did not enter the land. So the land of the Hebrews itself represents rest. Okay, that's the organic symbolism, or that's the physical symbol in this world. But the land also represents where the Most High dwells, right? He dwelt among his people, and he dwelt among us when we were in our land. Okay, so Yah himself is rest. Okay, and then even the headquarters, so to speak, the capital of the land of the Hebrews is Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, right? Which literally means the city of peace. Okay, so spiritually, right? Because Yah is spirit. Yah is Ruach. Okay, it is a spiritual rest that he's talking about right now, as well as the physical rest. And again, he's already, just by doing that, he's showing the parallels between Yahusha, or Joshua, the conqueror, and Yahusha HaMashiach. Continuing on. And yet his works have been finished since the creation of the world. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day in these words, on the seventh day Yahuwah rested from all his works. And again in the passage above he says, They shall never enter my rest. Therefore, since it still remains for some to enter that rest, and since those who formerly had the good news proclaimed to them did not go in because of their disobedience," he's talking about that generation that died in the wilderness, "Elohim again set a certain day, calling it today. This he did when a long time later he spoke through Dawid, as in the passage already quoted, 'Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts.' For if Yahusha, Joshua, had given them rest, Yahuwah would not have spoken later about another day." Okay, so he's saying that he's talking about these passages being dual prophecy. Okay, they were somewhat fulfilled through Yahusha the Conqueror, but they were fulfilled completely and will be, even looking ahead still, through Yahusha HaMashiach. Okay, and so I hope that made sense, first of all. And now I'm going to show you, if we look in the NKJV, okay, so verse 8, where it says Joshua here, the footnote literally tells you, okay, Greek, Jesus, same as Hebrew, Joshua. So they're literally telling you that this is the same term, Yahusha, okay? So his name in Hebrew would be Yahusha, and then the son, of the Most High, the Son of Yah, is also called Yahusha. Okay, they have the same name, so then why don't they have the same translation through English, right? Because we're calling him Joshua, and then the Christians are calling Mashiach Jesus. So why is that? And one of the reasons, I didn't realize it until my sons happened to be studying through the book of Joshua right now. As we're studying it together, I realized why they needed to distance between the two names, okay? So the summary basically is that Yahusha the Conqueror, he had some blood on his hands. Like, he came through and was wiping people away. That is a conflict with the image, or at least the Christian image, of how they want to portray Mashiach. Okay, so I'm going to go to, I'm going to start in Yahusha, or Joshua 8, and I want to read this as well. Just the subtitle here. Yahusha renews the covenant. This is heavy, okay? Because there are parallels between him and Yahusha HaMashiach. Yahusha HaMashiach, we already know, is the new covenant, okay? And so here we see what they're calling a renewal. Okay, so verse 30, again, this is Joshua 8. Now Yahusha built an altar to Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel in Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Yahuwah had commanded the children of Yasharel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moshe, an altar of whole stones, over which no man has wielded an iron tool. And they offered on it burnt offerings to Yahuwah, and sacrificed peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the children of Yasharel, he wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moshe, which he had written. Then all Yasharel, with their elders and officers and judges, stood on either side of the ark before the priests, the Levites, who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, the stranger, as well as he who was born among them. Half of them were in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Yahuwah had commanded before, that they should bless the people of Yasharel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moshe had commanded which Yahusha did not read before all the assembly of Yasharel, with the women, the little ones, and the strangers who were living among them. Hallelujah. So this is really important because we actually are going to see this again. So Yahusha, the conqueror, the warrior, okay, in this situation, he is reiterating and renewing the covenant between the Most High and the people, and basically reminding them, hey, you have a covenant with Yah, our God. So remember this as you continue to come into this land, right? Into the land that he gave us. And that's important because, like we said, Yahusha is a parallel. Yahusha the warrior is a parallel to Yahusha HaMashiach. Yahusha HaMashiach is the new mediator, all right, which we see in the New Testament as he comes down and descends from heaven to save his people again. We also see his passion, his zeal for the law. Okay, so the law and the covenant are one. Okay, and as we know, Yahusha HaMashiach is known as the way, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? We actually see this literally, him, blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the law of Yahuwah. So here in Psalm 119, verse 1, okay, you have Yahusha HaMashiach directly linked to the law of Yahuwah. All right. And so again, that's what we see with Yahusha, the conqueror here, right? Because he's reading the law, every word of Moshe, to all the people. And I wanted to mention something else here because notice that, let's see where it mentioned the strangers among them. Okay. Who bore the ark of the covenant. So it's talking about the Levites here. The stranger as well as he who was born among them. Okay, right? So the law is being read to all of them. Then he says, half of them were in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moshe, the servant of Yahuwah, had commanded before, that they should bless the people of Yasharel. So even the stranger is, although with them, this is for the people of Yasharel, and that is consistent with everything happens to the house of Yah first, right? To the Yahudim, then the Gentile, or to the Jew first, then the Greek. Okay, so if the people of Yasharel are blessed, the strangers among them will be blessed as well. Okay, but it all happens according to the people first, and the people being the Israelites. I'm hopping over to Joshua 10 here, okay, and I just want to focus on the conquering of Canaan by Yahusha, okay, because since there are, we already talked that there's parallels between Yahusha, the warrior, or Joshua, okay, and Yahusha HaMashiach, okay. It's also parallels in how they will conquer, and that is really important. All right, when Mashiach returns, it's going to be similar to how Yahusha, the warrior, was conquering back then. So let's take a look. Okay, so here Joshua 10 is where, if you're not familiar with this, where he asked for sun and moon to stand still so that he could completely destroy the enemies of the Hebrews. So I'll just start in verse 7. So it says, so Yahusha ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And Yahuwah said to Yahusha, do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. Yahusha therefore came upon them suddenly, having marched all night from Gilgal. So Yahuwah routed them before Yasharel, killed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon. chased them along the road that goes to Beth Horon and struck them down as far as Asakeh and Makkedah. And it happened as they fled before Yasharel and were on the descent of Beth Horon that Yahuwah cast down large hailstones from heaven on them as far as Asakeh, and they died. More parallels here, because this also happens at the end of time, very near to when Yahushua HaMashiach returns. So that's interesting, just another parallel I just noticed. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Yasharel killed with the sword. Okay, and also notice that as well is a parallel, the magnitude of the hailstones in Revelation as well. Okay, so then he continues. Then Yahusha spoke to Yah in the day when Yah delivered up the Amorites before the children of Yasharel. And he said in the sight of Yasharel, Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aishalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the people had revenge upon their enemies. So he specifically asked the luminaries to stop so that he could completely and utterly destroy the enemies of the Hebrews. That is some serious motivation, okay? And notice also, it's revenge, okay? Those people should not have been in the land, okay? But I mentioned this in another Lost in Translation. So anyway, so sun stood still in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that Yahuwah heeded the voice of a man, for Yahuwah fought for Yasharel. Okay, then Yahusha returned and all Yasharel with him to the camp at Gilgal. By the way, I have mentioned this in various other videos. It is very, very clear here that chapter 10 of Joshua just completely obliterates the heliocentric model, the Gentile science that they gave us, telling us that, you know, we're on our Earth is a spinning globe, you know, rocketing through space, and, you know, we're all kind of like following our sun, which is a star. All that is it's part of the heliocentric deception, okay? And Joshua 10 clearly shows that if you believe the Hebrew writings, that cannot be true. So I've mentioned this. Also, if you go to my website, I don't think I've mentioned this in a while, but if you go to my website, you can see that I have a global delusion series that breaks down the geocentric model that the Hebrews talk about. Okay, so already, you know, we're seeing that he is very serious coming into this land, and we're going to continue. This is still Joshua 10, okay? I'm just going down a little bit, and I'm just going to hop around, but just trying to show and focus on the destruction that he is bringing into this land, okay? Because again, understand that this is similar to what the world will see when Yahushua HaMashiach returns. Okay, so verse 18, so Yahushua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave and set men by it to guard them. And do not stay there yourselves, but pursue your enemies and attack their rear guard. Do not allow them to enter their cities, for Yahuwah your Elohim has delivered them into your hand. Then it happened, while Yahusha and the children of Yasharel made an end of slaying them with a very great slaughter, till they had finished, that those who escaped entered fortified cities, and all the people returned to the camp to Yahusha at Makkedah in peace. No one moved his tongue against any of the children of Yasharel. Okay, so when you see scripture that talks about Yahushua HaMashiach returning and ruling with an iron rod. Okay, now you have a way of defining what that means by looking at Yahusha. But again, people most likely would not make that parallel because they distance these two by changing the name. Okay, remember that's where we started with this, right? That they're trying to distance Joshua the Conqueror with all this blood on his hands and the Christian Jesus, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to drop down to verse 25. This is still Joshua 10, okay? Then Yahusha said to them, do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus Yahuwah will do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Yahusha struck them and killed them, and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until evening. These 5 are the 5 kings. Okay, so it mentions these kings in 22 and 23. Let's see, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmouth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. Verse 28. On that day Yahusha took Makkedah and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed them all the people who were in it. He let none remain. He also did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Verse 29. Then Yahusha passed from Makkedah and all Yasharel with him to Libnah, and they fought against Libnah. And Yahuwah also delivered it and its king into the hand of Yasharel. He struck it and all the people who were in it with the edge of the sword. He let none remain in it, but did to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Okay, he let none remain. That's men, women, and children. Okay, they all had to go. This is the judgment of Yah, right? Because Yah is with Yahusha the Conqueror here. Okay, so here he's at Lachish in verse 31, verse 32, and Yahuwah delivered Lachish into the hand of Yasharel, who took it on the 2nd day and struck it and all the people who were in it with the edge of the sword, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Yahusha struck him and his people until he left him none remaining. Okay, and after Lachish, he goes to Eglon, okay, and Yasharel with him. Verse 35, they took it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword, and all the people who were in it he utterly destroyed that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Now he's in Hebron in verse 36. Verse 37, and they took it and struck it with the edge of the sword, its king, all its cities, and all the people who were in it. He left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but utterly destroyed it and all the people who were in it. Verse 38, now he's in Debir. Verse 39, and he took it and its king and all its cities. They struck them with the edge of the sword and utterly destroyed all the people who were in it. He left none remaining. As he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir and its king, as he had done also to Libnah and its king. Okay, so verse 40, it kind of gives a summary now, right? So Yahusha conquered all the land, the mountain country, and check the footnote here, the Negev, okay, and the Negev, and the lowland, and the wilderness slopes, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel had commanded. And Yahusha conquered them from Kadesh Barnea as far as Gaza and all the country of Goshen, even as far as Gibeon. Okay. So again, this is not the this is not the portrayal that we've been given, right? And that is on purpose again. So it is very important to understand the parallel between these two. Okay? That Yahusha the Conqueror symbolized Yahusha HaMashiach. Okay? They were both bringing their people into rest. And the way that they're doing that is by destroying their enemies. Okay, and we clearly see that Yahuwah is with him, is with Yahusha the warrior. He absolutely is with Yahusha HaMashiach, right? So you see the same, and for the destruction of Yahusha HaMashiach, I actually go into that quite a bit in my video, Return of Mashiach, King of the Negroes. Okay, so if you want to take a look at the backwards parallel, I guess, and hear and go into a study about Mashiach's destruction when he returns, you can take a look at this video. But I hope that at least makes sense now of why they needed to distance the two. They needed to distance this white version of Mashiach that they created, okay? This image within religion. That image that they used does not fit with what we're reading in Joshua. Okay? So they needed to destroy that parallel. Okay? And that's what they're trying to do by using a different term. Because we just saw earlier in Hebrews 4, we see Hebrews 4 verse 8 that the same name is used for both. So again, we see through poor transliteration. Well, I don't even know if we could consider it poor transliteration, because I would consider it disinformation again. These things are done deliberately. In any case, they do not want you to associate their image of Jesus to Joshua. It conflicts with their manipulation of what they want to portray in him. All praises to the Most High Yah and to the Lion of Yahudah. Peace and love, fam.